Jumbo Control post BT16 and EX6 has a lot of potential. It adds the necessary aggression for your opponent to honestly deal with your stack if they don't have an option card to do it. In some ways, Digimon has slowly phased out a lot of the option-heavy removals in favor of more consistency. The decks that still continue running a high number of option cards are Security Control. The narrative of this video is going to look at my current thoughts on Jumbo Control with BT16, along with my proposals on how to flesh it out come EX6, and more. There are a variety of ways to play it, and depending on if you're going for consistency or maximizing meme potential, that is ultimately up to you. The variant I will predominantly discuss will be tailored more towards a blue control aggro variant, but I'll sprinkle the other builds throughout the discussion. Level 2 wise, I'm on 4 copies of Wanyamon and 1 copy of Bukamon. Honestly, I'm still in the middle of figuring out what egg would be best for the deck. Prior to moving cards around, this deck ran 4 Tamers, which meant Wanyamon had a higher chance of proccing. Because of this, there aren't a lot of eggs I'd consider using since the majority of them are on your turn, and most effects that would strip sources are on your opponent's. But of course you'll default to the Bukamon for the inheritable jamming if your opponent has no Digimon with equal or more sources than you do. Rookies, this lineup is mostly finalized for the fact that you can capitalize on one of 2 things. Number 1, Otamamon is a beastly level 3 Digimon that can strip the bottom 2 sources when your opponent's Digimon attacks, rendering them in a very awkward position of potentially having enough sources stripped that when you go into Zudomon Ace, the whole stack goes. Keep in mind this effect is only once per turn and only on the first Digimon that attacks. Gomamon creates a pseudo-float body while Betamon does the majority of the heavy lifting with the jamming inheritable. Because Betamon can stun a Digimon from attacking, you could hard play this or play it from the sources whenever your opponent attacks with Jumbogamenmon's effect. And of course yokomon for the prevention of your opponent from using training options, though this could be easily substituted out for modokibetamon considering Numemons are very memory efficient. Once EX6 drops, if you think the blocker is more valuable, this is where you could bring in the betamon as another option for the jamming inheritable. But once you get to level 4s, there's a slew of hilarity that can ensue. With my original build, I maximized coredramons from the starter deck for a draw 2 whenever it's played onto the battlefield. In some testing, even with the simulator, when your opponent attacks, you can play this out from Jumbogamemon, draw 2, then if you happen to draw into Zudomon Ace, blast Digivolve on top of coredramon for some hilarious bounce backs. Gesomon was my go-to for the time being to bounce back pesky level 4 or lower Digimon, and honestly it felt good in the Numemon matchup, while Magnamon does the heavy lifting when it comes to security interactions. Combined with the D-Digivolve and potentially stripping more sources and bouncing again, Jumbogamemon could have played a level 3 from the sources in preparation for the Magnamon play. But with BT16, a new Digimon could be another addition in the form of togemogumon. This armored Digimon would be a little more expensive, but it does provide another blocker and an ability that would trash one of their Digivolution sources when a Digimon is suspended. Of course, one downside to this is that if played from Jumbogamenmon sources, the attack has already happened, meaning you would miss out on the first attack. Still, it creates a float in a way for your level 4s to drop to level 3 for a potential Magnamon play. But ultimately, when it comes to the level 5s, some of these interactions were again absolutely hysterical. We all know what Zudomon Ace does and how it's capable of trashing any 2 sources, then bouncing a Digimon with those sources back to the hand. Gesomon becomes an easy target. But if you have a level 4 in the back, and you previously hard slammed Zudomon Ace to bounce a Digimon back to hand, you can then Digivolve into megaseadramon for the memest of meme plays. Megaseadramon has an on-play and when Digivolving effect that lets you place one of your other blue Digimon underneath this Digimon as its bottom Digivolution card. Then you return one of your opponent's Digimon with less than or equal to the placed card to the bottom of the deck. With one situation, you could place Zudomon underneath at the bottom deck of level 5, or even targets like Gomamon for an extra float, or Betamon for the jamming. But the hilarious interaction is if your opponent attacks with a level 6 Digimon. While this Digimon is under Jumbogamemon, you could play Megaseadramon with Jumbogamemon's effect, then use Megaseadramon to tuck Jumbogamemon under it to bottom deck a level 6 Digimon. Then because you're still in the attack phase, blast Digivolve into a Zudomon Ace to bounce a level 5. Ultimately, it becomes a game of what do you have in your hand, and the important question, what is in the Digivolution sources? One common problem I see with the Digimon card game is the fact that not all players are willing to communicate every aspect or detail of their stack if you don't prompt questions. And this is one deck that will definitely force your opponent to ask more questions, since all of your cards are stacked up on top of one another. Such was a common problem for even myself when playing or playing against Grandest Kuwagamon, for the memory gains from a Kuomon would be lost. The level 6s can be structured however you want based on what you prefer. For me, Jumbogamemon is the mandatory 4-of because he is the champion of the deck. If Jumbogamemon has megaseadramon in the sources, and betamon as well, you can attack and suck any Digimon to unsuspend it. The hilarious part, if you suck up Zudomon Ace, it did not leave the battle area, meaning when your opponent attacks, they will likely have to deal with Zudomon Ace coming back out to play. But if they try and attack over Jumbogamemon, you could easily pull megaseadramon to bottom deck their level 6. For other level 6s, because you're constantly sending cards back to the hand, miragegaogamon is another fun element of control that plays with the memory very well, and at times can lead to your opponent misplaying and adding a card to the hand and forcing the turn change. A Zulongmon Ace is just icing on the cake with not only a bounce of a level 5 or lower, but a deletion as well when it's deleted. But should you go for the memest of meme routes, you could forego the use of Mirage altogether and employ all of Zulongmon Aces for the sole reason of adding the additional level 7 Digimon, Chaosmon. Because Jumbogamemon's hilarious way to play out Digimon, you can simultaneously blast Digivolve and set up a Zulongmon Ace. If they don't out either stack on your turn, you could be going into Chaosmon, and when Chaosmon is removed from the battlefield via card effect, except Digivolve, you may play out both Jumbogamemon for a blocker and a Zulongmon Ace for another bounce. With option cards, I toyed around with Great Maelstrom and Full Moon Meteor Impact simply because they both send back Digimon. Albeit one is to the bottom of the deck, the other to the hand, and there is potential memory gain if it was played from the hand versus checked in security. But with the building being all blue, mental training always played a huge role here. Finally, with Tamers, it's simply Davis Motomiya. Because of the addition of togemogumon, Davis now has the potential for not just one hit, but two. Again, this was a really fun deck to play around with on the simulator. And though it might not be top tier by any means, sometimes you gotta take a look at other card interactions to think about whether this would be fun or not. In terms of interactive, it does require your opponent to attack. But if you're constantly chipping away with Jumbogamemon and unsuspending by tucking other blue Digimon, the question becomes, should your opponent just sit back and not attack? Honestly, the largest weakness for this deck lies in the fact that removal can easily clear your stack, since at times you commit them to one. But other times, you might have a wide build. D-Digivolve was the biggest pain for the deck, which was largely tested against decks like the Digi-Police and D-Brigade. But what are your thoughts on the deck? Which version did you like most, and do you see yourself playing this deck at an event? Let me know your thoughts, as the next topic for this week looks at whether pre-sales hold true, or if the community needs to begin adapting to a new mindset. This is Digi-Panda, logging out.